Avinash Pasricha has photographed many legendary musicians and dancers. These include Pandit Ravi Shankar, Begum Akhtar, MS Lakshmi, Ustad Bismillah Khan, and several others who you will discover through his own work, the photographs that he has gladly shared with us on this MOOC platform, so that we all can see this work of documenting musicians and dancers who have passed away, but they have left a body of work that the whole world cherishes and remembers. Thanks to photojournalists like Mr. Avinash Pasricha, we can see the gestures, we can see the expressions, we can see the abhanaya, and like Rasiks, we can enjoy the rasa, we can enjoy the beauty and the joy of the dance forms and the musical performances. Mr. Avinash Pasricha has done a lot of contribution to performing arts photography. If you are interested to document culture, art, people, and if you are somebody who, even with your mobile smartphone, is interested to think and compose and look for pictures that can tell stories, there's lots to learn here. So let's welcome Mr. Avinash Pasricha. Thank you, sir, for giving your time and for sharing with the younger generation a lifetime's work of nearly 60 years of exploring the world of music and dance through photography. Thank you for giving your time. When did you start doing photography and how did it all begin for you?
Well, I was in fact born in a studio. My father had a studio in Delhi and in Shimla. I was born in Shimla. And so seeing the shop and customers and attending to them right from age 4 or 5, photography was all around us. So I used to enjoy sitting on my father's chair, attend customers, right? And so photography was all around. We used to sit, we live in the balcony of the studio and we used to see my father do portraits of different people. It used to take tremendous time even doing 2 plates in a portrait, so that everything would be adjusted one light at a time, the expressions and so on. And I was thinking I was going to join him, but destiny had something else in favor. He said, you won't learn here. So there was a lab opening in USIS. So go and join them. So I joined them for a year, 2 years, and ended up spending 40 years in USIS. 37 of them as photo editors. In fact, when Eisenhower came to India in about 58, I was there in the photo lab in charge. So the editor who was there saw my work. He said, "We're starting this magazine, would you like to join? It might be only for 2 years." But I said, okay. And I had no experience either of learning anywhere else. And so it's learning by doing. No, I joined SPAN, and so a few assignments, went to Kotkar to shoot a cover story, another cover story on children in a home, and similarly, so the chance to make covers for SPAN, as well as inside stories, makes you think. So you became a thinking photographer, as you would go with a writer, interview people, see institutions. They would take notes. You'd get fed up waiting for the notes to finish, but then sometimes you would start moving around and look for pictures, and pictures which tell the story. So your mind starts working. And in fact, photography is basically first look and then compose. and then see what lighting you need, additional lighting, or whether it is daylight or window light, or you need fill-in, because those days you could shoot black and white and color. I used to carry two Rolleiflex cameras, one for color, one for black and white. 35 I didn't have at that time, and gradually moved from Rolleiflexes to 35mm cameras, Nikons. And then, so this carrying two cameras became a habit, and then later on in life, the second camera became a color negative instead of transparencies. And now, for the last, 12 years, I'm shooting digital. So you have to grow with the times as to what is convenient, what is good. I'm still learning computers because I didn't learn computers in my school days at all. And nowadays, small bachas operate cell phones, computers, chutki mein, very easily, no problem. I still have a problem.
Okay. You must have had some very interesting opportunities to shoot a lot of interesting events, including, I believe, that moment when you got the former American, the First Lady of America, Jacqueline Kennedy, with Jawaharlal Nehru on the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Can you tell us about some memorable moments from your career at SPAN?
Now, the first thing, when the editor discovered that I had not even been to America, so I was sent on a 4-month tour of America to visit different places, different magazines, National Geographic, International Harvester, and so on, and see how they work so that I would become a better photo editor. Apart from that, I was not only the photo editor, but the photographer also for the magazine. So I would be sent to cover personalities, cover institutions, and usually all the pictures which SPAN could use had to be positive. There was no negative photography, no showing, what shall we say, things that are bad in the country, but only that's where we want to show good. So it's always looking for good pictures. And that looking, and then you have to see immediately, because the writer can come and write the story much later. But you had to think on the spot where the picture would tell the story about that personality or institution. And similarly, that famous picture of Jackie Kennedy, she visited India in 1962. We were allowed to move around. So I, in fact, went around wherever she went in India, which was Agra and Jaipur. And so we went by train, and I shot her in Varanasi also. So we covered all those events. Now, the Jackie Kennedy and Nehru, they were walking up the steps in Rashtrapati Bhavan. And there was this bodyguard, red bodyguard of the president's estate, standing there with his lance. And so I asked them to stop. Nobody does that anymore because you're miles away from VIPs unless you are the accompanying photographer. And they stopped, smiled, and I got a picture that made the cover of SPAN. So this was an opportunity that you have to think fast and create. It doesn't happen anymore. Times have changed because there are hundreds of photographers. We are put in a van miles away from what's standing, unless you're an accompanying photographer. So I've been to the US 4 times to cover Indira Gandhi's visit, to cover Rajiv Gandhi's visit, to cover Narasimha Rao's visit, apart from my first visit to the US, to get a feel of what US is all about. So that created a sort of, what shall I say, I learned journalism by doing, having to do it. So one must be open to learning, open to trying, open to experimentation. And then the picture must satisfy the art director and the editor before it will be used, and before they're willing to give space in a 52-page magazine. So I got known around the country as a span photographer, span photo editor, because of that.
Yes.